The Starr D'Amico Show brought to you by cheapesttshirts.ca. Need blanks for your next event or club? Check out cheapesttshirts.ca. No minimum order, free shipping over $350. Same day shipping on lots of items. Affordable, Canadian, ready to print your design. Brought to you by Catherine Prince at Remax Platine, your Montreal real estate connection. Call her at 514-702-2474 or email Catherine with a K, Catherine at catherineprince.com. If you're looking to buy, sell, or invest with confidence, Catherine Prince, your key to the city's property market. Brought to you by McLean's Pub. Looking for a lively downtown spot with great food and atmosphere? Come to McLean's Pub on Peel Street. Classic pub eats, plenty of beer, and all the sports on all the screens. Grab your friends and make McLean's your go-to place tonight. Brought to you by Cabletel, your full-service telecom partner for business and home. From structured cabling and phone systems to Wi-Fi, cameras, and alarms, Cabletel keeps you connected, secure, and performing at your best. Your partner for the future. It's Cabletel. Welcome to Game Day. It's the Montreal Canadiens and the Philadelphia Flyers, Marker, where the Habs will begin a nice little stretch. It's been a minute. You know, they've played a lot of road games. Nice to see them. I think they're going to be playing 5 of their next 6 games at the Bell Center with one stop at New Jersey. Other than that, it's going to be a nice little run at home. Good for the fans, good for the boys to get that vibe. I mean, the vibe on Saturday night. And look, it's the Canadiens' most legitimate rival here. The days of the Boston Bruins and to a certain extent, the Toronto Maple Leafs are kind of in the rear view. In the here and now, there's nothing better really today than a Saturday night in the Montreal Canadiens and Ottawa Senators. That's the most legit rivalry this team has going these days, isn't it?
Um, yeah, it's difficult to say a legit rivalry. Like, I feel like rivalries really kind of take a notch up in the playoffs.
No doubt. No doubt.
And so I think the Canadians need to like redevelop that sense by making the playoffs consistently. And obviously you look at the way that the Atlantic division is shaping up, and you got to think to yourself, Montreal and Ottawa are probably going to be at the top of that division for the foreseeable future with their young cores, right? As older teams start to descend, other teams attempt some sort of reset, retool, like Boston, for example. So I think that from an emotional perspective, in terms of the two teams that hate each other the most, yes, most definitely Ottawa and Montreal at this point are a thing. Though I think that fans would love to see the temperature turned up with other divisional rivals.
The Philadelphia Flyers lost big at home to the Maple Leafs on Saturday in a 5-2 final. As it sits right now, Philadelphia 6-4-1 with 13 points, 6-3-1 in their
Mhm.
in their last 10 games. Well, the Montreal Canadiens, as of this right now, only Colorado has more points than they do in terms of any club in the National Hockey League. But Montreal is 9-3 through 12 games. Marco, they've also played in 9 one-goal games this season. They're 7-1 in those games.
Mhm.
They're undefeated in overtime this year. They've gone to back-to-back overtime victories. They also
Mhm.
have 4 regulation time victories. Your early read on the positive is Montreal gets out to multi-goal leads. They do that consistently, but they seemingly always let the other team back in these games and
Yeah.
yet remain perfect in overtime. What's going on? Is it simply parity in the league? Is it simply there's another NHL team on the ice and there's always going to be a pushback? Is it immaturity from the Canadians, the youngest team in the league? What's your read on these very tightly contested games through 12 of the Habs regular season so far?
Yeah, I mean, part of it is bad luck. Part of it is a lack of concentration. And I think part of it is also just strategic positioning, tiredness. Like, if we go back and we look at the Ottawa Senators game and we say, hey, they got back in the game. Well, fair. But let's look at those goals, right?
Fair, yeah.
The Batherson goal was just a terribly bad luck play where Joe Valeno should have just cleared that, not just tapped it away right to
Yeah.
Batherson's stick, right? So that's a mental mistake. I wouldn't even put that on Montembeau. Like, how do you prepare for that? That you can't. And then the second goal, again, just like really bad luck in terms of it just ricocheting off of like 4 bodies and in. So I don't really fault them for that. Where I fault them is they play not to lose in the second period.
Agreed.
And I think that is the difference. So from a team that's afraid to lose will play the game in the neutral zone a little less aggressively. So, for example, I find that the Canadians in the first period, and you can look at this, hopefully not next game. Hopefully they get a couple of games where they get a couple of regulation Ws. But if you watch in the first period, the Canadians always attack the center of the ice with conviction, right? And they're always two guys at least in transition in the offensive zone.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it's because of the long change. I don't know if it's because of the way they try to defend that and also try to manage, their shifts because they want to keep it under a minute. But when you end up having to make those transitionary decisions, the Canadians don't make the same decisions in the second period as they do in the first. A key point or a key element to that, for example, would be the crisscross in the neutral zone. So the Canadians, when they have the long change and their defensemen are on the ice for a while, this is usually when they get caught here. It's usually in the second period. They've had one really good second period all season, and the rest has been rather average. They lose connection. They lose the coverage. So if you were two forwards coming down the Canadians in the long change, I don't know if it's a concentration issue or whatnot, but they end up crisscrossing. They lose their guys, and the middle of the ice is open. This has happened a couple of times, with Dobson and Matheson. This has happened a couple of times as well with Jaden Struble and Lane Hudson. And it's something I've started to notice a little bit is that I think teams are starting to catch on. The center of the ice, outside of when Nick Suzuki is on the ice, in transition on the long changes, is open. It's open
Yeah.
for business.
Mm-hmm.
So if I'm Martin St. Louis and I'm looking at that, one of the things that I would do is I would staple my center to the red line in transition. Like your wingers can be up and down, it's easier to cover, but like I'm watching Jake Evans, for example, in the second period, and he's more or less usually on the boards. But the idea is in the second period, long change, you want to start crunching guys. You want to start pushing guys to the extremity, and then the defenseman just taking them out of the play, taking the puck, going back the other way. They do that so effectively in the first and third period, but in the second period, there just seems to get away from them.
I mean, there's part of me that thinks, having another veteran, how they get that guy, what they have to give up to get that guy would obviously help this team. But the other side of my brain is like one of the talking points you and I had before the season got going or into the preseason was there's a little bit more pressure on Martin St. Louis,
Mhm,
with more chairs being occupied by verified roles, less experimentation. Your
mhm,
first line's locked in, the Evans Gallagher line with Anderson there kind of locked in a little bit, rotating cast of characters on the second line, and on we go. I mean, and then
mhm.
I hear you talk about, what you'd like to see this team do in terms of in-game adaptation, locking down the neutral zone a little bit more. I can't help but think some of that like falls on the coaching staff. I mean, can they be better at in-game adjustments? Is that also part of the reason why, teams, whether it's Edmonton, Seattle, Ottawa, the theme of these 9 1-goal games for a team that's 9-3. I'm a little paranoid of the law of averages ultimately prevailing and the question of sustainability. Um, and is this sustainable over the course of the next 70 games or so? So what about the coaching staff and how they can adapt in game? Do you like what you see, or do you want to elaborate a little bit more on what they can improve on?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think it's a question of locking down, right? Like it's there are two ways in which the Canadians lose leads. They lose leads in the second when the period gets sleepy, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Or when they're defending the lead at the end of the game, right? And I think we need to establish and we need to look at both separately. So I just talked about the second period. Second period, I believe they lose the game on transition. That's where I think the penalties start coming into play as well. And I
Hmm.
think that's when they start getting tired. They start taking more penalties. On average, they take more penalties in the second period than the first and the third. So you factor that in because penalties is the other aspect of it where I feel they lose the game as well, is they get burned on the amount of penalties they take in a game. And so if they're able to shore up transition and they're able to clean up their penalty act, well, then I think that changes the dynamic as well. And ultimately, and again, like I'm sorry to say this, but in the third period, they play not to lose. They really
Hmm.
do play not to lose when they have a lead. Like, it's so easy to see a Canadians, like, I wouldn't say trap game, but it's so easy to see the Canadians preparing to defend a lead because all of their offensive creativity goes away.
Agreed.
And what makes the Canadians so strong is that they're just coming at you wave after wave with speed, pushing the pace in the offensive zone. Getting away from that identity is what hurts the Canadians in being able to sustain those leads. Like, you look back at the Seattle game. The Seattle game doesn't happen without a costly penalty in the third,
Hmm.
and then the Canadians playing on their heels for the rest of that third period. And so, like, it brings us to the same question of discipline and confidence. And I don't feel like the Canadians are playing with confidence when it comes to defending a lead. And I think that stems from the players on the ice, but it also stems with the coaching staff, because the coaching staff goes back to the same players to defend the lead, and it's not working.
Hmm.
And part of it is goaltending, right? Like, I get it. You look at the Edmonton Oilers game, I think you can comfortably say that Montembeault could have made at least one save in the third period. The Seattle Kraken game, same concept. I think that second goal, especially with Dobish's reaction, I feel like he could have had that one. But at the same time, they wouldn't have been in that situation if they hadn't taken silly penalties. Or in the Edmonton game, if the refereeing weren't debatable, to say it
Oh,
politely.
you're being kind.
So yes,
Yeah.
that's why I have to be kind, but debatable, to put it politely. So if you know that, I think there also needs to be a change up in that regard. And I don't know if you guys noticed this, but the Canadians, for the first time this season, utilize the Evans, Gallagher, Anderson line like a fourth line. They
Hmm.
played the least amount of minutes amongst forwards at 5-on-5. Who got the bump? Kapanen, Demidov, and Newhook. Why?
Exactly. Rightfully
Because
so.
exactly, because they play to win.
Yeah.
Every single shift. They do not play to play defense in their role. And Kapanen is very good at being able to be that center on the red line that's able to assist and box guys out. That's the one big benefit of playing in Sweden and in Finland, is they teach you that right off the bat, is how to help your how to basically cut the ice in half and help box guys out. And then he brings the offensive element, being able to be complementary to Newhook, who's been having one heck of a season
Oh
in terms
man.
of his two-way ability.
Yeah.
And then Ivan Demidov, like, I don't really need to add. So when you combine those three, their 5-on-5 metrics are much better the more that they play, because they are not a team that plays to lose. The issue that I have with the Gallagher, Anderson, and Jake Evans line is there's too many mental mistakes. There's Josh Anderson not clearing the puck when he gets it on his stick. There's Jake Evans not playing high enough in the zone when they're trying to limit the point shots. Because let's face it, the Canadians, what's beaten them this year? Fluke goals, tips.
Oh
It's not
man.
the
You saw it
traditional
Saturday
shots.
night. Uh-huh.
Yeah, exactly. But you also saw it against Seattle. You also saw it against Edmonton. It's all of these random, like, point shots that get tipped in front, the ricochet shots. Like, it's just, to me, it's again, like, when you play tight, and you can see from a goaltending perspective, goaltenders that don't have confidence play deeper in their net. Defensemen that don't have confidence play closer to the dots instead of playing higher to the dots or closer to the slot. Centers that don't have confidence don't play high enough in the zone to put enough pressure, because they fear the puck coming back to the slot. So it's all domino effects, right? So to me, it's just about shoring that up. And obviously, they have a whole lot of season to do that. But I agree with you in the sense that there is a lack of experience in that regard. There is
Hmm.
a lack of experience both on the defensive end. I mean, Mike Matheson is the only player over the age of 30, for the love of God. And then on the forward end, there is, outside of Gallagher and Anderson, that's basically it. Those are the two guys over the age of 30. So there is a lack of experience in that regard, but it's also stylistic, in my opinion, right? Like, I, at this stage right now, in a third period, when I want momentum going back the other way, I think that the Demidov line is more effective in being able to do that. And Martin St. Louis said it in his press conference last night. I asked him the question. I was like, well, hey, you said you wanted to give Demidov more 5-on-5 minutes. here you go. You just gave him, 16 minutes tonight. Like,
Yeah,
what changed? And he's like, it's because he did a big shift in the defensive zone the shift
exactly.
before. And then, I see that. I want to give him more. I want to give him more. So I think part of it also to me is just like a deployment issue. You have better players that would be able to help push the pace offensively so that you're not playing catch up in defense. And lo and behold, they get you your tying goal, right? So it's not by chance. It's not by chance. And that to me is what's important is putting the right players at the right time. And I think that's what hurt the Canadians in the past is, you can't play Mike Matheson 27 minutes in a game, expect him to defend the lead for the last two and a half of the last 4 minutes of a game. Like it's a lot. It is a lot. So you need to diversify and you need to bring in guys that are going to be able to step up. One of those guys has been Jaden Struble. I think Jaden Struble has earned the right to start playing a little bit more minutes in crunch time situations. Another one of those guys we just finished talking about, it, Alex Newhook. I would prefer to see Alex Newhook defending a lead right now than Josh Anderson, with respect, because he's effective on the PK. He's effective at even strength. And I mean, I'm not saying this because he scored the game winner in a two strong defensive plays in overtime that led to his goal. Like, this is a guy who has upped his two-way game in a significant way. This is a guy that I believe not only could be a defensive threat, but a counterattack forward threat if he ever gets sprung on a breakaway or if he breaks up a play and goes back the other way. So to me, it's a deployment issue as well. So there are elements, there are layers to this. As Martin St. Louis, it's not just one thing. That's what he likes to say. It's not just one thing. There's a couple things. But the Canadians have the elements to be able to be a better defensive team. It's about maturing as a group, in my honest opinion.
And you saw Alex Newhook ringy dingy a ripper off the crossbar in the second period, one of two posts the Canadians hit on that Saturday night in the 4-3
And where
overtime
did that
win.
come from? Where did that
Yeah,
come from? That was a play from Ivan Demidov that broke up the
exactly.
play in the neutral zone because he
Exactly.
boxed
Well,
out a winger to the side. No
correct.
one does that.
And one of the notes I put down on my notes app in the second period was here, skilled forwards doing well, consistently there on the back check, watching 93 playing a 200-foot game yesterday, which brought back your point about Martin St. Louis. Everybody appreciates that. You're going to get your more minutes because of the work you put in on the defensive side of the game. But,
Mhm,
I want to end on this point because I can't help, I do agree. It's about pushing the pace, pushing the pace. And I like Oliver Kapanen's game. I do. I think he's a smart, high hockey IQ type of player. But I don't know, my instinct says he's miscast on that role. And that in my perfect world, the Canadians get a better offensive player to keep up with Demidov, and that Evans falls down. Kapanen plays that third line role in a perfect world, which really doesn't exist. Ask the Toronto Blue Jays, but you can't have it all, brother. And to me, it just for this team at 9-3 on this game day against Philadelphia, that's the one missing thing that when the Suzuki line or they're playing tighter because they want to protect the lead and hold on to their assignments, having
mhm.
another wave of a line with, to complement Demidov and Newhook's blistering start will make this team so much more dangerous. And of course, that's a topic of I'm sure we're going to be all over as the season goes on here.
Well, there's two ways of looking at it. First of all, I think that Oliver Kapanen is one of the best situations right now as a rookie to come into the league, right?
Yeah.
Usually, rookies that have come into Montreal since the rebuild have kind of been cast into the savior situation. Whereas now you're seeing, well, I mean, Ivan Demidov to me doesn't really count as a rookie. Like when I look at him, he's already above the mean, right? Like that's
Yeah.
fine. But when you're an Oliver Kapanen, you're coming into the NHL. It's a really good situation to be in with a really hot Alex Newhook and Ivan Demidov, right?
Hmm.
And I think it's helped him boost his confidence. And so I think it's a very fair to say that he's played like a top nine NHL center at the least to
I
start
agree.
this season.
I
And
agree.
I think his two-way ability compensates for the fact that Ivan Demidov was trying to figure out the defensive side of the game to start the season. So now that you have all these homestands, you have the last change. I don't think there's any qualms, or there should be any qualms, with playing that line more and utilizing the speed, creativity, and hockey IQ of those three players so that you can then use the Gallagher line a little bit less intensely and have them be used in pocket situations where they could really impact more of the energy side of the game as opposed to using them strictly as defensive. Because yes, there is the defensive element, but one of the best remedies to, not getting scored on is scoring on your opponent and spending more time in the offensive zone. And I think one of the best ways to do that is to utilize lines that are known for puck possession. Well, the
Hmm.
Canadians Kapanen line is outside of their top line, their best puck possession line. Time to use them. And then, we talked about it before, but then there's also an efficacy of your lineup situation. Like for me, I feel like if we go back and look at the last couple of games, it's very questionable decisions from certain players, be it from unnecessary penalties or
Sure.
be it from very bad clearing attempts or decision making. I think Joe Veleno, for example, has kind of hurt the team in that regard. Has made a lot of egregious mistakes, be it from taking penalties or just giveaways that have resulted in goals. So, for example, maybe as we talked about yesterday, maybe it's also about like giving him a sit and bringing up a guy like Jared Davidson so that
Hmm.
you have three safer lines because right now he's really hurting that Kirby Doc
Agreed.
line at 5-on-5.
There's Marco D'Amico, one half of the Starr and D'Amico Show, where you can find us on all your favorite social media platforms now. Very excited about that. I know Marco's huge on the TikTok scene. So will the Starr and D'Amico Show. Check us out on TikTok, Instagram, and Twitter or X, however you prefer to call it. And you can continue to support us by supporting our sponsors, like cheapesttshirts.ca, where you can get the cheapest deals in Canada today. And of course, McLean's Pub, your home of Starr and D'Amico. We're going to be at Maison Publique November 17th. From 6:30 to 7:30 for a live show. So I hope you come and enjoy the ambiance and the great service there. Big shout out to Chuck and Evie from Little Bear. Get all the expert advice, get all the best gear for your pets from around the world at great prices at Little Bear. Check them out online at littlebearonline.com. Big shout out to Catherine Prince from Remax Platine, buying or selling your house, 514-702-2474. And welcome Cabletel, a proudly Montreal-owned company for 20 years, your trusted source for internet, for home service, for alarm systems at great prices. Check them out online at Cabletel. Marco D'Amico, we're back live following the Montreal Canadiens and Philadelphia Flyers on Wednesday morning. We've got 2 live shows this week as the Montreal Canadiens are back to the nice Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday schedule. Very much looking, I appreciate that. Marco, thanks as always, and looking forward to seeing you live on Wednesday morning.
Sounds like a plan, guys. Everyone have a good day.